The big house stood like a palace on the hill. Marcus Whitmore owned this house. He was 35 years old and very rich. He made his money from computers and technology. Tonight his house was full of people. They came for a charity party. Rich people loved these parties. They could show off their money and feel good about helping others. Marcus walked through his house in his expensive suit. Everything in his house cost a lot of money. The floors were made of marble. The walls had paintings worth millions of dollars. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling like diamonds. But Marcus was most proud of one thing. In the center of his main room sat a beautiful piano. This piano was not just any piano. It was a Steinway grand piano from 1920. The wood was shiny black. The keys were white as snow. Marcus paid $200,000 for this piano. He bought it not to play music, but to show people how rich he was. The piano sat in his house like a piece of art. No one ever played it. Elena Rodriguez was also in the house that night. But she was not a guest. She was working. Elena was 28 years old. She had long black hair and kind brown eyes. Her hands were rough from hard work. She wore a simple black dress and white apron. This was her uniform for serving at parties. Elena carried a tray of drinks through the crowd of rich people. She was careful not to bump into anyone. These people scared her a little. Their clothes cost more than she made in a year. Their jewelry sparkled like stars. They talked about buying houses and boats like normal people talked about buying groceries. Elena worked many jobs to make money. During the day, she took care of old people at a nursing home. At night, she cleaned offices. On weekends, she worked at parties like this one. She needed all this money because her mother was sick. The medicine for her mother cost a lot. Elena never had money left over for herself. As Elena walked around the party, she heard the guests talking. They talked about their new cars. They talked about trips to other countries. They talked about buying expensive things. Elena listened but said nothing. She was invisible to these people. They saw her as just the help. Marcus loved being the center of attention. He stood near his piano and told stories to a group of people. He talked about how much money he made last year. He talked about his new business deals. The people around him laughed at his jokes and told him how smart he was. "You know," said a woman in a red dress, "this party would be even better with music. Do you have anyone who can play your beautiful piano?" Marcus laughed loudly. "Play it? No one I know can play piano. I bought it because it looks good. It makes my house look classy." A man in a blue suit looked at the piano. What a waste. Such a beautiful instrument just sitting there. "It's not a waste," Marcus said. "It's art. Besides, even if someone could play it, I bet they couldn't play it well. This piano needs a real artist to play it right." Elena was walking by with her tray when she heard this talk. She stopped and looked at the piano. Her heart started beating fast. She knew this piano. She knew it was special. She could see how beautiful it was. But she also saw something the rich people could not see. She saw a musical instrument that was lonely. "I bet no one at this party can play a single song," Marcus said, getting louder. More people gathered around to listen. "This piano is too good for amateur players." A young woman with blonde hair giggled. "What if someone could play it?" "What would you do?" Marcus thought this was very funny. He had been drinking wine and felt bold. "If anyone at this party can play this piano well, I'll do something crazy. I'll marry them." Everyone laughed. They thought Marcus was making a good joke. The idea that someone at this fancy party could not play piano seemed impossible to them. They were all rich, but none of them had learned music. "You're joking," said the man in the blue suit. "I'm serious," Marcus said, spreading his arms wide. "If anyone here can sit down and play this piano like a real musician, I'll marry them on the spot. But it has to be good music, not just hitting keys." The crowd laughed harder. They started looking around at each other. Who would try? Who would embarrass themselves? Some people took out their phones. They wanted to record someone failing to play the piano. Elena stood at the edge of the crowd. She held her tray tight in her hands. Her heart was beating so fast she thought people might hear it. She looked at the piano. She looked at Marcus. She looked at all the laughing rich people. These People did not know about Elena's past. They did not know that she once played piano better than most professionals. They did not know that music was her first language before English. They did not know that her fingers remembered every key, every song, every piece of music she had ever learned. Elena's father had been a music teacher. He taught her to play piano when she was very small. By the time she was 10, Elena could play music that made people cry. She was so good that she got a scholarship to a famous music school called Juilliard in New York City. But life changed everything. When Elena was 20, her father died in a car accident. Her mother became very sad and sick. Elena had to leave music school. She had to come home and take care of her mother. She had to work many jobs to pay for medicine and food. For 8 years, Elena had not played piano. Her musical dreams were locked away in her heart. Now standing in Marcus's house, Elena felt those dreams waking up. The piano called to her like an old friend. She wanted to touch the keys. She wanted to make music again. But she was scared. What if she had forgotten how to play? What if her fingers did not work the same way? What if these rich people laughed at her? Marcus was still talking loudly about his challenge. Come on. Someone must be brave enough to try. I'm offering to marry anyone who can play this piano well. Elena took a step forward. Then she stopped. She was just the help. These people would think she was crazy. But the piano seemed to glow in the light. It seemed to be waiting for her. Marcus saw her step forward. What about you? He said, pointing at Elena. Do you want to try to win a rich husband? Everyone turned to look at Elena. She felt her face get hot. Her hands shook a little. The room became very quiet. Elena knew this was her moment. She could walk away and stay invisible. Or she could show these people who she really was. Elena felt all eyes on her. The rich people stared at her like she was an animal in a zoo. Some of them smiled in a mean way. They thought it would be funny to watch the poor girl fail. Marcus crossed his arms and waited. He was sure this would be entertaining. Well, Marcus said, are you going to try or not? Elena's mouth felt dry. She wanted to speak, but no words came out. Her hands gripped the silver tray so tight her knuckles turned white. She looked at the piano again. It was so beautiful. It reminded her of the piano at her father's music school. In her mind, Elena could hear her father's voice. Music is not about money or fancy clothes, he used to say. Music is about the heart. If you play with your heart, people will listen. Elena remembered the first time she played piano for other people. She was 7 years old. Her father's students were having a concert. Elena was too young to be in the concert, but her father let her play one song at the end. She was so small her feet could not reach the pedals. But when she played, the whole room became quiet. Even the adults stopped talking. After she finished, everyone clapped for a long time. Music is your gift, her father told her that night. Never be ashamed of your gift. But that was a long time ago. Now Elena was not a little girl with dreams. She was a grown woman with bills to pay. She worked hard every day just to survive. She had not touched a piano in 8 years. What if she could not play anymore? What if her hands had forgotten? What if she embarrassed herself in front of all these important people? Elena looked around the room. The people were getting impatient. Some of them started talking to each other again. They were losing interest in the joke. Marcus was checking his phone. He thought Elena was too scared to try. But then Elena saw something that made her angry. A woman in an expensive dress was laughing with her friends. Look at her, the woman said quietly. She probably doesn't even know what a piano is. Another person said, poor thing thinks she can play like a real musician. Elena felt fire in her chest. These people thought they were better than her because they had money. They thought she was stupid because she worked for them. They did not know anything about her life or her dreams or her pain. Elena thought about her mother lying in the hospital bed. The doctor said her mother needed expensive treatment. Elena worked 3 jobs, but it was not enough. She was tired all the time. Her back hurt from cleaning floors. Her feet hurt from standing all day. Her heart hurt from giving up her dreams. But music had been her first love. Before she knew about money or worry or sadness, she knew about music. Music was the language she spoke before she could even talk properly. When she was little, she would hum songs before she could say words. Her father said she was born to make music. Elena remembered the last time she played piano. It was the day before her father's funeral. She sat at his old piano in their small house. She played his favorite song while her mother cried in the next room. Elena promised herself that she would come back to music someday. She would make her father proud. But someday never came. Life was too hard and too busy. Now she stood in this big house with these rich people. They thought she was nothing. They thought she was just a poor girl who served drinks. They had no idea that she once played in Carnegie Hall. They had no idea that famous musicians once told her she was special. They had no idea that she gave up everything to take care of her family. Marcus was getting bored. "Never mind," he said. "I guess no one wants to try. The piano will stay quiet tonight." "Wait," Elena said. Her voice was small but clear. Everyone looked at her again. Marcus raised his eyebrows. "You want to try?" Elena nodded. She could not speak because her throat felt tight. She was scared but also excited. The piano was calling to her. She could almost hear music in the air. "This should be interesting," someone said. Elena walked to the edge of the crowd. People moved out of her way. Some of them had their phones, ready to record her failure. They thought this would be funny to share with their friends later. Elena set down her tray on a small table. Her hands were shaking. She walked slowly toward the piano. Each step felt heavy. The piano seemed to get bigger as she got closer to it. When Elena reached the piano, she stopped. She put her hand on the smooth black wood. It was cold but beautiful. She could see her reflection in the shiny surface. For a moment, she saw herself as a little girl again. She saw herself happy and full of dreams. "Are you just going to stand there?" Marcus asked. "Either play or don't play." Elena looked at him. For the first time, she saw past his expensive suit and confident smile. She saw a man who did not understand the value of what he owned. He bought this piano like he bought his paintings and his fancy cars. It was just another thing to show off. He did not know that this piano could make beautiful music. He did not know that music could heal hearts and change lives. Elena sat down on the piano bench. The seat was the perfect height. She adjusted her position and looked at the keys. There were 88 keys, all clean and perfect. She had not seen piano keys this close in so long. The crowd behind her was getting louder. People were making jokes and taking pictures. But Elena blocked out their voices. She closed her eyes and remembered her father's lessons. "Feel the music before you play it," he used to say. "Let it live in your heart first. Then let your hands tell the story." Elena put her fingers on the keys but did not press them yet. The keys felt smooth and familiar. It was like greeting an old friend after many years. Her hands remembered this feeling. Her fingers remembered their positions. She thought about what song to play. She knew hundreds of songs. Her father taught her classical music. She learned jazz and blues and pop songs too. But what should she play for these people? What song would show them who she really was? Then Elena knew exactly what to play. She would play the song her father loved most. It was a piece by Chopin called Ballade No. 1. It was not an easy song. It required skill and feeling. But it was the perfect song to show these people that she was not just a poor girl serving drinks. Elena opened her eyes. She looked at Marcus one more time. He was smiling like he expected her to fail. The other people were waiting for the show to begin. Elena took a deep breath. She pressed the first key. The first note filled the room like magic. It was soft and clear and perfect. Elena pressed the second key, then the third. Each note was exactly right. The piano responded to her touch like it had been waiting for her all its life. The talking in the room began to slow down. People started to notice that something special was happening. The sound coming from the piano was not the clumsy noise they expected. It was real music. Elena's fingers moved across the keys with grace. She had not played piano in 8 years, but her hands remembered everything. They remembered the shape of every chord. They remembered the rhythm of every song. It was like riding a bicycle. Once you learned, you never forgot. Marcus stopped smiling. His face changed from amusement to surprise. This was not what he expected. The poor girl was actually playing music. Real music. Good music. Elena played the opening of Chopin's Ballad No. 1. It started quietly like a whisper. Her left hand played the low notes that sounded like a heartbeat. Her right hand played the melody that floated above like a bird singing. More people stopped talking. They turned to look at the piano. Some of them put down their drinks. Others put away their phones. The music was too beautiful to ignore. Elena felt the music flowing through her like water through a dry river. For 8 years, this river had been empty. Now it was full again. The music washed away her fear and her tiredness. It washed away the memory of cleaning floors and serving drinks and counting money for medicine. She was not Elena, the poor girl, anymore. She was Elena, the musician. She was Elena, the artist. She was Elena, the girl who once made famous people cry with her music. The melody grew stronger. Elena's fingers danced across the keys like they were telling a story. The story was about dreams that die and then come back to life. It was about love that lasts even when everything else falls apart. It was about hope that lives in the darkest places. Marcus watched Elena's hands move. He had never seen anything like it. Her fingers were so fast they looked like they were flying, but every note was perfect. Every sound was exactly where it should be. She was not just playing the piano, she was speaking to it. She was having a conversation with the music. The woman in the red dress moved closer. She forgot about being superior to the help. She forgot about making jokes. The music made her remember something she had lost long ago. Maybe it was innocence. Maybe it was wonder. Maybe it was the ability to feel something real. Elena's eyes were closed now. She did not need to see the keys. Her fingers knew where to go. The music was coming from inside her, from a place deeper than memory. It was coming from her soul. The melody became more complex. Elena's left hand played patterns that sounded like water flowing over rocks. Her right hand played notes that sparkled like stars. The two hands worked together like they were dancing. A man near the back of the room wiped his eyes. He did not know why the music made him want to cry. He was a businessman who never cried. But something about Elena's playing touched a part of his heart that had been sleeping for years. The room became completely quiet except for the piano. No one talked, no one moved. Even the waiter stopped working to listen. The music had cast a spell over everyone. Elena played the middle section of the piece. This part was like a storm. Her hands moved faster. The notes came like rain, quick and strong. But it was not chaos. Every note had its place. Every sound had meaning. Marcus felt something strange happening in his chest. His heart was beating differently. He had heard music before, of course. He had been to concerts and operas, but he had never felt music like this. Elena's playing went straight to his heart without asking permission. He looked at Elena's face. She was completely focused on the music. Her expression was peaceful but intense. She looked like she was in another world, a world where money did not matter, a world where only beauty and truth existed. The storm in the music began to calm. Elena's hands slowed down. The notes became gentle again. This part of the song was like the sun coming out after rain. It was like hope returning after despair. Some people in the room started to cry quietly. They did not know why. The music was touching something inside them that they had forgotten. Maybe it was their childhood dreams. Maybe it was their lost innocence. Maybe it was their capacity for wonder. Elena played the final section of the piece. This was the most beautiful part. The melody soared like a bird flying to heaven. Her right hand played notes so high and sweet they seemed to float in the air. Her left hand supported the melody like strong arms holding something precious. Marcus realized he was holding his breath. The music was so beautiful it hurt. It was like looking at the sun or standing at the edge of the ocean. It was too much. Beauty for one person to contain. Elena's playing grew stronger as she approached the end. Her whole body moved with the music. She swayed gently like a tree in the wind. Her shoulders rose and fell with the rhythm. She was not just playing the piano. She was becoming the music. The final notes came like drops of golden honey. Each one was perfect and sweet and necessary. Elena's hands moved in slow motion. The last chord rang out in the silent room like a bell. Then it was over. Elena's hands stayed on the keys for a moment. She was breathing hard like she had been running. Slowly, she opened her eyes. The spell was broken, but its magic remained in the air. The room was completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even breathed loudly. They were all frozen by what they had just heard. Elena looked around at the faces staring at her. These were the same people who had been laughing at her 5 minutes ago. Now they looked like they had seen a miracle. Marcus stared at Elena like he was seeing her for the first time. The poor girl serving drinks was gone. In her place sat a musician of extraordinary talent. Someone who could make magic with her hands. Someone who could touch hearts with sound. The silence stretched on and on. Elena began to feel nervous again. Why was nobody saying anything? Had she done something wrong? Had she embarrassed herself after all? Then, from the back of the room, someone started to clap. It was slow clapping at first. Then another person joined. Then another. Soon the whole room was applauding. But this was not polite party applause. This was the kind of applause that came from the heart. These people had been moved by something real and beautiful. They clapped because they had to. Because staying silent would have been impossible. The applause grew louder and longer. People shouted, "Bravo!" Some of them had tears on their faces. The woman in the red dress was crying openly. The businessman who never cried was wiping his eyes with his expensive handkerchief. Elena stood up from the piano bench. She felt dizzy. The last 10 minutes felt like a dream. Had she really just played Chopin for a room full of rich people? Had she really remembered how to make such beautiful music? Marcus was the last person to start clapping. He was still in shock. His joke about marrying anyone who could play the piano did not seem funny anymore. This woman had just shown him something he had never seen before. Real talent, real artistry, real beauty. Elena picked up her serving tray from the small table. She wanted to go back to work. She wanted to disappear into the crowd again. She had shown these people who she really was. Now she needed to go back to being invisible. But as she walked toward the kitchen, people reached out to touch her arm. They wanted to tell her how beautiful her playing was. They wanted to know where she learned to play like that. They wanted to know who she was. Elena smiled politely but kept walking. She had work to do. The party was not over. There were still drinks to serve and plates to clear. The real world was calling her back. But behind her, Marcus stood staring at the piano. Something had changed in him. Something important. He did not know what it was yet, but he knew his life would never be the same. Marcus could not move from his spot. He stared at the piano where Elena had just been sitting. The bench was empty now, but he could still hear the music in his head. Every note was still there, perfect and clear. He had never experienced anything like this before. The guests around him were still talking about Elena's performance. They spoke in excited whispers, like they had just witnessed something sacred. Marcus heard fragments of their conversations. "Did you see how her hands moved? Like magic. I've never heard piano playing like that at a concert hall. Where did she learn to play? She must have studied at the best music schools. Who is she? How does Marcus know such a talented musician?" Marcus felt embarrassed. These people thought he knew Elena was a musician. They thought he had planned this surprise, but the truth was he knew nothing about her. To him, she was just part of the catering staff. Just someone who served drinks and cleaned up after his parties. Now he realized how wrong he had been. Elena was not just a worker, she was an artist, a real artist with incredible talent, and he had almost missed it completely. Marcus looked around the room for Elena. He saw her in the corner picking up empty glasses and putting them on her tray. She was back to work like nothing had happened, like she had not just amazed a room full of people with her beautiful music. "Marcus," called the woman in the red dress. Her name was Catherine, and she was married to a famous businessman. "You have to tell us about your pianist. Where did you find her?" Marcus did not know what to say. He could not admit that he knew nothing about Elena's musical background. It would make him look foolish. She's very talented," he said weakly. "Talented?" said the man in the blue suit. "She's extraordinary. I've been to Carnegie Hall many times. I've heard the best pianists in the world. That woman could play with any of them." Marcus felt a strange feeling in his stomach. It was partly embarrassment and partly something else, something he could not name. He had made a joke about marrying anyone who could play his piano, but Elena's performance was no joke. It was serious, it was real. It was beautiful. "You have to introduce us to her," said Catherine. "I want to invite her to play at my charity event next month." "My wife runs an arts foundation," added another man. "We're always looking for new talent. This woman could have a real career as a performer." Marcus listened to these offers with growing amazement. These people were important in the art and music world. They knew talent when they saw it, and they had all been impressed by Elena. Across the room, Elena continued working. She tried to focus on her job, but she could feel people staring at her. Some guests tried to talk to her as she passed by with her tray. They complimented her playing and asked questions about her musical training. Elena answered politely but briefly. "Thank you," she said when they praised her playing. "You're very kind," she said when they asked about her background. She did not want to tell these rich people about her real life, about her sick mother and her money problems and her lost dreams. But inside, Elena felt something she had not felt in 8 years. She felt proud. She felt like a musician again. For a few minutes at that piano, she had been herself. Her real self. Not the poor girl who cleaned floors. Not the tired woman who worked 3 jobs. She had been Elena the artist. Marcus finally worked up the courage to approach her. Elena was clearing plates from a table when he walked over. She looked up and saw him coming. Her face became neutral and professional again. "Excuse me," Marcus said. He felt nervous, which was strange for him. He was used to being confident and in control. But something about Elena made him feel uncertain. "Yes, sir," Elena said. "Do you need something?" Marcus realized he did not know what to say. Should he thank her for playing? Should he ask about her musical background? Should he apologize for treating her like she was invisible before? That was incredible, he said finally. "Your playing, I mean, it was beautiful." "Thank you," Elena said. She started to walk away, but Marcus stepped in front of her. "Wait," he said. "I need to know. Where did you learn to play like that?" Elena looked at him carefully. She could see that he was genuinely curious, not just making small talk. "I studied music when I was younger," she said. "Where? What school?" Elena hesitated. She did not want to tell him about Juilliard. She did not want to explain why she left. "Different places," she said vaguely. Marcus could tell she did not want to talk about it, but he could not let it go. "You're incredible. You could be performing in concert halls. You could be famous. What are you doing working at parties?" Elena felt a flash of anger. This rich man thought it was easy to be a musician. He thought talent was enough. He did not understand that life was not that simple. Not everyone can afford to follow their dreams, she said quietly. Marcus heard something in her voice. Pain, maybe, or sadness. He realized he had said something wrong, but he did not know what. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to." "It's okay," Elena said. "I should get back to work." She walked away before Marcus could say anything else. But Marcus stood there thinking about her words. Not everyone can afford to follow their dreams. What did that mean? What had happened in Elena's life that made her give up music? Marcus spent the rest of the party watching Elena work. He noticed things he had never seen before. How hard she worked, how polite she was to everyone, even when they treated her rudely. How tired she looked by the end of the night. When the last guest left, Elena and the other workers began cleaning up. Marcus usually went to bed and let the staff finish without him. But tonight, he stayed. He helped carry dishes to the kitchen. He picked up napkins from the floor. The other workers looked at him strangely. They had never seen the boss help with cleanup before. But Elena did not seem surprised. She just kept working. When everything was clean, the catering staff prepared to leave. Elena gathered her things and headed for the door. Marcus caught up with her in the hallway. "Elena," he said. She turned around, surprised that he knew her name. "How do you know my name?" she asked. I asked someone," Marcus said. "Listen, I want to apologize for tonight, for my joke about the piano. It was stupid." Elena shrugged. "It's okay. You didn't know." "But that's just it," Marcus said. "I should have known. I should have seen that you were more than just the help." Elena finished for him. Marcus felt his face get hot. "I'm not usually like this. I'm not usually so ignorant." Elena studied his face. She could see that he was genuinely sorry. That was something, at least. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, "you don't know anything about me. You don't know my life or my problems or why I'm here instead of playing piano in some fancy concert hall. And that's okay. You don't need to know. I'm just here to do my job." "But you're wasting your talent," Marcus said. "You're too good to be serving drinks at parties." Elena's eyes flashed with anger again. "You think I don't know that? You think I chose this life? You think I wanted to give up music?" Marcus took a step back. He had never seen Elena angry before. Even angry, she was beautiful. But her anger was also frightening. "I don't understand," Marcus said. "No, you don't," Elena said. "And you don't need to. Good night, Mr. Whitmore." She walked out the door, leaving Marcus alone in his big, empty house. He stood there for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. His joke about marriage did not seem funny anymore. It seemed serious, maybe even prophetic. For the first time in his life, Marcus had met someone who was truly extraordinary. Someone who had real talent and real depth. Someone who could create beauty with her hands and touch hearts with her music. And she was walking, away from him, back to a life that was clearly too small for her gifts. Marcus looked at his piano. It seemed different now. Before tonight, it was just an expensive decoration. Now it was an instrument that had been awakened by Elena's touch. It was a piano that had finally been used for its true purpose. Marcus made a decision. He was going to find out more about Elena Rodriguez. He was going to understand why such a talented woman was working 3 jobs instead of sharing her music with the world. And maybe, if he was very careful and very respectful, he could help her find her way back to the life she deserved. Marcus could not sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard Elena's music. He saw her hands moving across the piano keys like they were dancing. He remembered the look on her face when she played. She had been transformed from a tired worker into a radiant artist. But he also remembered her anger when he suggested she was wasting her talent. Her words echoed in his mind. "You think I chose this life? You think I wanted to give up music?" Marcus realized he had said something very stupid. Of course, Elena had not chosen to give up music. Something had forced her to make that choice. Something painful and difficult. And his casual comment about wasting her talent had reopened old wounds. The next morning, Marcus could not concentrate on work. He sat in his office trying to read emails, but his mind kept wandering back to Elena. He found himself wondering where she lived, what her life was like when she was not working at parties, why she had given up music. Marcus was not used to thinking about other people's problems. He lived in a world where money solved everything. If he wanted something, he bought it. If he had a problem, he hired someone to fix it. The idea that someone could have problems that money could not solve was foreign to him. But Elena's situation was clearly more complex than money could fix. She was incredibly talented, but talent alone was not enough. Something else was keeping her from pursuing music. Something serious enough to make her work 3 jobs instead of following her dreams. Marcus made a decision. He called the catering company that had provided staff for his party. He asked to speak to the manager. "I want to know about one of your workers," Marcus said. "Elena Rodriguez, she worked at my party last night." "Oh, Elena," the manager said. "She's one of our best workers, very reliable, very professional. Is there a problem?" "No problem," Marcus said quickly. I was impressed with her. I might have some additional work for her." "Well, I can give you her contact information if you want to hire her directly. But I should warn you, Elena is very busy. She works for us on weekends, but she has other jobs during the week." Marcus wrote down Elena's phone number and address. Then he sat staring at the paper, wondering what to do next. He could not just call her. What would he say? He could not just show up at her house. That would be inappropriate. Then Marcus had an idea. The catering manager had mentioned that Elena worked other jobs during the week. Marcus decided to find out where. It took some detective work, but Marcus eventually learned that Elena worked at Sunshine Manor, a nursing home across town. She worked there during the day, taking care of elderly residents. Marcus drove to the nursing home that afternoon. Sunshine Manor was not like the fancy medical facilities that Marcus was used to. It was clean but old. The paint on the walls was faded. The furniture looked like it had been there for many years. This was a place for people who could not afford expensive care. Marcus parked his expensive car in the parking lot and immediately felt out of place. He was wearing a suit that cost more than most people made in a month. His watch was worth more than some people's cars. He looked like he belonged in a different world. Inside the nursing home, Marcus asked to speak to the director. The director was a tired-looking woman named Mrs. Patterson. She seemed surprised to see such a wealthy-looking man in her facility. "How can I help you?" Mrs. Patterson asked. Marcus had not thought about what to say. "I'm here about Elena Rodriguez. She works here, right?" Mrs. Patterson's expression became protective. "Elena is an excellent employee. If there's been some kind of complaint—" "No complaint," Marcus said quickly. "Actually, I wanted to tell you how impressed I am with her. She worked at an event at my house last night. She was extraordinary." Mrs. Patterson relaxed a little. "Elena is special, that's for sure. She's wonderful with our residents. They all love her. She's been working here for several years now." "Several years?" Marcus was surprised. He had assumed Elena was just doing temporary work while she figured out her career. "Oh yes. Elena is very dedicated. She never misses work, even when she's sick. She often works overtime when we need extra help. The residents trust her completely." Marcus was beginning to understand something. Elena was not just working at the nursing home temporarily. This was her real job, her career. She had been taking care of elderly people for years. Could I see her? Just to say hello?" Mrs. Patterson looked at Marcus suspiciously. "Are you a friend of Elena's?" Marcus hesitated. "Not exactly. I'm someone who appreciates her talents." This was a strange answer, but Mrs. Patterson decided to allow it. She led Marcus down a hallway lined with wheelchairs and walkers. The smell of disinfectant mixed with the sounds of televisions and quiet conversations. They found Elena in the activity room. She was sitting at a small table with an elderly man, helping him work on a puzzle. She was wearing simple scrubs and comfortable shoes. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked completely different from the elegant woman who had played piano at his party. But as Marcus watched her interact with the elderly man, he saw the same gentleness that had been in her music. She spoke to the man with patience and kindness. When he struggled to find the right puzzle piece, she encouraged him with a warm smile. "Elena," Mrs. Patterson called. "You have a visitor." Elena looked up and saw Marcus. Her face showed surprise, then confusion, then something that might have been annoyance. She excused herself from the puzzle table and walked over to them. "Mr. Whitmore," she said formally. "What are you doing here?" Mrs. Patterson looked between them curiously, then decided to give them privacy. "I'll be in my office if you need anything," she said, walking away. Elena crossed her arms and waited for Marcus to explain himself. He suddenly felt very foolish. What was he doing here? What had he hoped to accomplish? "I wanted to see you," he said, "to apologize properly for last night." "You already apologized," Elena said, "and I told you it was fine." "But it's not fine," Marcus said. "I realize I was incredibly rude. I made assumptions about your life without knowing anything about you." Elena glanced around the nursing home. She was clearly uncomfortable having this conversation at her workplace. "Mr. Whitmore, I appreciate you coming here, but I'm working. I can't chat with you right now." "When do you get off work?" Marcus asked. "Why?" "I'd like to buy you coffee, or dinner, just to talk." Elena stared at him like he had suggested they fly to the moon. "You want to have dinner with me?" "Yes." "Why?" Marcus struggled to find the right words. "Because you're the most interesting person I've met in years. Because your music last night was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Because I think there's a lot more to you than serving drinks and this." He gestured around the nursing home. Elena's expression hardened. "What's wrong with this? What's wrong with taking care of people who need help?" "Nothing," Marcus said quickly. "That's not what I meant. I meant you have other talents too. Musical talents that what? That are being wasted? That I should be using instead of doing this job?" Marcus realized he was making the same mistake again. "I'm sorry. I keep saying the wrong thing." Elena sighed. She looked tired, and not just from work. She looked tired in a deep way, like she had been carrying heavy burdens for a long time. "Mr. Whitmore," she said gently, "you live in a different world than I do. In your world, if someone has talent, they can just decide to use it. They can just choose to follow their dreams. But in my world, things are more complicated." "What do you mean?" Elena glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Then she spoke quietly. "I have responsibilities, people depending on me, bills to pay. My mother is sick and needs expensive medicine. I can't just quit my jobs to play piano. Music doesn't pay the bills." Marcus felt something click into place. Elena's anger the night before, her defensive attitude, her multiple jobs, it all made sense now. "Your mother?" he said. "What's wrong with her?" Elena hesitated. She did not usually talk about personal things with strangers, but something about Marcus's expression made her think he genuinely cared. "She has heart problems," Elena said. "She needs surgery, but our insurance doesn't cover it all. I'm trying to save money for the medical bills." "How much do you need?" The question was so direct and practical that Elena was taken aback. Why are you asking?" "Because maybe I can help." Elena's face went cold. "I don't want your charity, Mr. Whitmore." "It's not charity," Marcus said quickly. It's payment. For your performance last night. You entertained my guests. You should be compensated." "I was already paid by the catering company. Not enough, not nearly enough for what you gave us." Elena shook her head. "I can't take money from you. It wouldn't be right." Marcus felt frustrated. Here was a problem he could actually solve. Elena needed money for her mother's medical bills. He had plenty of money. It seemed simple to him. But Elena's pride was getting in the way. "Elena," he said, "let me ask you something. If you had enough money to pay for your mother's surgery, would you go back to music?" Elena's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away quickly. "I can't think about that. It's not realistic." "But if it were realistic? If money weren't an issue?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was very soft. "Music was my life once. It was everything to me. But that was a long time ago." For the next week, Marcus could not stop thinking about Elena. He found himself driving past Sunshine Manor on his way to work, even though it was not on his usual route. He wondered if she had thought about his offer to help with her mother's medical bills. He wondered if she would ever trust him enough to let him help. Marcus was not used to being rejected. In his world, people usually said yes to him. They said yes to his business deals. They said yes to his dinner invitations. They said yes because he was rich and powerful. But Elena had said no. She had walked away from him twice now. This should have made Marcus lose interest. He was used to getting what he wanted easily. When something was difficult, he usually moved on to something else. But Elena was different. The more she rejected his help, the more determined he became to prove himself worthy of her trust. On Friday afternoon, Marcus made a decision. He drove to the nursing home again, but this time, he did not go inside to see Elena. Instead, he spoke to Mrs. Patterson privately. "I want to make a donation to your facility," Marcus told the director. Mrs. Patterson's eyes widened. Donations were rare at Sunshine Manor. "That's very generous, Mr. Whitmore. What kind of donation?" "I want to set up a medical assistance fund for your employees, to help them when they have family medical emergencies." Mrs. Patterson was confused. "Why would you want to do that?" Marcus had prepared for this question. "My grandmother spent her last years in a place like this. The staff took wonderful care of her. I want to give back." This was not exactly true. Marcus's grandmother had died in an expensive private facility that was nothing like Sunshine Manor. But it was not exactly a lie either. Someone had taken care of his grandmother, and he was grateful for that. Mrs. Patterson was thrilled. "How much were you thinking of donating?" $50,000 to start, with more to come if the fund is used well. Mrs. Patterson nearly fell out of her chair. $50,000 was more money than the nursing home usually saw in donations all year. "There's just one condition," Marcus added. "The fund should be anonymous. The employees shouldn't know who donated the money. And I'd like you to start by helping Elena Rodriguez with her mother's medical bills." Mrs. Patterson nodded eagerly. She did not question Marcus's motives. She was too excited about the money to ask difficult questions. "How much does Elena need for her mother?" Marcus asked. "I think about $15,000 for the surgery and follow-up care," Mrs. Patterson said. "Elena has been working overtime for months trying to save the money. Give her the $15,000. Tell her it's from the new medical assistance fund. Tell her she was chosen because she's been such a dedicated employee." Marcus wrote a check and left the nursing home feeling satisfied. Elena could not refuse help that came from her workplace. She would not feel like she was taking charity from him personally. On Monday morning, Mrs. Patterson called Elena into her office. Elena was nervous. She wondered if she was in trouble for something. "Elena," Mrs. Patterson said with a big smile, "I have wonderful news. We've received a generous donation to create a medical assistance fund for our employees, and you've been selected as our first recipient." Elena stared at her boss in confusion. "What kind of fund?" "It's to help employees with family medical emergencies. The donor wants to remain anonymous, but they've provided $15,000, specifically for your mother's surgery." Elena felt dizzy. $15,000 was exactly what she needed. It was like a miracle. "Are you sure?" "Why me?" "Because you've been such a dedicated employee. You've worked here for years without missing a day. You've helped other employees when they needed coverage. You deserve this help." Elena started to cry. She had been working so hard for so long trying to save money for her mother's surgery. She had given up sleep, given up free time, given up any kind of social life. And now, suddenly, the money was just being given to her. "There must be some mistake," Elena said. "Things like this don't happen to people like me." "They're happening. To you," Mrs. Patterson said kindly. "You can schedule your mother's surgery as soon as you want." Elena left work that day feeling like she was walking on air. She went straight to the hospital to tell her mother the good news. Her mother cried, too, when she heard about the medical fund. "It's a miracle, mija," her mother said, using the Spanish nickname she had called Elena since childhood. "God is watching over us." Elena agreed that it was a miracle, but something about the timing seemed strange. The donation had come just days after Marcus Whitmore had offered to help with her medical bills. But that was probably just a coincidence. Rich people made donations to charities all the time. Elena's mother was scheduled for surgery the following week. For the first time in years, Elena felt hope. Her mother would get better. The constant worry about money would be over. Maybe, just maybe, she could start thinking about music again. The night before her mother's surgery, Elena could not sleep. She found herself thinking about Marcus's question. If you had enough money to pay for your mother's surgery, would you go back to music? Now she had the money. The surgery was paid for. What was she going to do? Elena had not touched a piano since the night at Marcus's party, but she could still feel the music in her fingers. She could still hear melodies in her head. 8 years of suppressed musical passion was stirring to life again. On Saturday, Elena did something she had not done in years. She went to a music store downtown. The store had several pianos for customers to try. Elena asked the salesperson if she could play one of them. The salesperson looked at Elena's simple clothes and worn shoes with suspicion. "Are you planning to buy a piano?" "I'm just looking," Elena said. "Well, I suppose you can try the small. Upright in the corner. But please don't play too loudly. We have serious customers who might be disturbed." Elena sat down at the small piano. It was not as nice as Marcus's Steinway, but it was a real piano with real keys. She placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. She started with something simple, a Bach invention she had learned as a child. But as her fingers warmed up, she moved to more complex pieces. Chopin, Rachmaninoff, Debussy. Music flowed out of her like water from a broken dam. Other customers in the store stopped what they were doing and came to listen. The salesperson, who had been suspicious, now looked amazed. A small crowd gathered around the piano. Elena played for almost an hour. When she finally stopped, the people around her applauded. Several of them asked if she was a professional pianist. The salesperson apologized for his earlier rudeness and asked if she taught piano lessons. Elena left the music store feeling energized and alive. She had not realized how much she missed playing until she sat down at that piano. Her fingers remembered everything. Her musical instincts were still sharp. Maybe she really could go back to music. That evening, Elena's phone rang. She was surprised to see Marcus Whitmore's name on the caller ID. How had he gotten her personal phone number? "Hello, Elena," Marcus said when she answered. "I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the catering company." "What do you want, Mr. Whitmore?" "I heard about your mother's surgery. I'm glad she's getting the help she needs." Elena felt a sudden suspicion. "How did you hear about that?" Marcus had prepared for this question too. Good news travels fast in a small community. I'm just happy that everything worked out. Elena was not entirely convinced, but she decided not to press the issue. "Thank you for your concern. Elena, I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner with me tomorrow night. Just to talk. I promise I won't make any more offers to help with money." Elena hesitated. A week ago, she would have said no immediately. But something had changed. Maybe it was the relief about her mother's surgery. Maybe it was the afternoon at the music store. Maybe it was simple curiosity about this strange rich man who seemed genuinely interested in her. "Where?" she asked. "Anywhere you want. You pick the place." Elena thought about it. If she was going to have dinner with Marcus Whitmore, it should be somewhere she felt comfortable, somewhere that was part of her world, not his. "There's a small Mexican restaurant near my house," she said. "It's not fancy." "Perfect," Marcus said. "What time?" 7 o'clock. "And Mr. Whitmore?" "Yes. This is just dinner. Just conversation. Nothing more." "I understand," Marcus said. "I'll see you tomorrow at 7. After Elena hung up, she wondered what she had just agreed to. She was going to have dinner with a millionaire. A man who lived in a world completely different from hers. A man who could buy and sell her entire neighborhood without thinking twice about it. But she was also curious about him. At the nursing home, when he had offered to help with her mother's medical bills, she had seen something in his eyes. Something genuine. Something that made her think there might be more to Marcus Whitmore than expensive suits and fancy cars. Elena looked at herself in the mirror. Tomorrow night, she would find out if she was right about him, or if she was making a terrible mistake. Elena changed her clothes 3 times before dinner. She did not want to look too fancy, but she also did not want to look sloppy. Finally, she chose a simple blue dress that her mother had bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. It was the nicest thing she owned. The restaurant Elena had chosen was called Rosa's Kitchen. It was a small family place with plastic tablecloths and folding chairs. The food was delicious and cheap. Elena ate there sometimes when she was too tired to cook after work. Marcus arrived exactly at 7 o'clock. Elena watched through the window as he parked his expensive car on the street. Several neighbors came out of their houses to stare at the fancy vehicle. Marcus locked the car and walked toward the restaurant like he did not notice the attention. When Marcus entered Rosa's Kitchen, he looked completely out of place. His suit probably cost more than the restaurant made in a month, but he smiled at Elena and sat down across from her at the small table, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Thank you for agreeing to have dinner with me," Marcus said. "Thank you for coming to my neighborhood," Elena replied. "I know it's not what you're used to." Marcus looked around the restaurant. The walls were painted bright yellow and covered with family photos. The smell of spices and cooking meat filled the air. Mariachi music played softly from speakers in the corners. "It reminds me of a place my college roommate used to take me," Marcus said. His family owned a small restaurant in San Antonio. "Best food I ever ate?" Elena was surprised. She had expected Marcus to be uncomfortable in Rosa's Kitchen. Instead, he seemed relaxed and genuinely interested in his surroundings. The waitress came to take their order. She was an older woman named Carmen who knew Elena well. Carmen looked at Marcus curiously but treated him with the same friendliness. She showed all customers. Marcus asked Carmen what she recommended. When she suggested the chicken mole, he ordered it without hesitation. Elena ordered the same thing. She was impressed that Marcus was willing to try something unfamiliar. While they waited for their food, Marcus and Elena talked. At first, the conversation was awkward. They came from such different worlds that they had little in common. But gradually they found things to discuss. Marcus asked Elena about her work at the nursing home. Elena told him about some of the residents she cared for. An old man who had been a jazz musician in his youth. A woman who spoke 5 languages and told stories about traveling the world before she got sick. "They have such interesting lives," Elena said. "Sometimes I think they have more wisdom than people half their age." "You really care about them," Marcus observed. "They're like family to me. Some of them don't have anyone else." Marcus was struck by Elena's compassion. In his world, people were often kind when it benefited them somehow, but Elena's kindness toward the elderly residents seemed genuine and selfless. Their food arrived, and Marcus took his first bite of the chicken mole. His eyes widened with pleasure. "This is incredible," he said. Elena smiled. Carmen's grandmother taught her the recipe. It's been in her family for generations. As they ate, Marcus told Elena about his business. He explained how he had started his technology company in his garage and built it into a multi-million-dollar corporation. But he did not brag about his success. Instead, he talked about the challenges and the mistakes he had made along the way. "Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it," Marcus said. "Building the company took over my entire life. I don't have much else." "What do you mean?" Elena asked. "I don't have close friends. I've never been married. I spend most of my time working or at business events. When I go home at night, it's just me and my expensive things." Elena heard something sad in Marcus's voice. "Don't you have family?" "My parents died when I was in college. I have a sister, but we don't talk much. She thinks I'm too focused on money." "Are you?" Marcus considered this question seriously. "Maybe. I used to think money was the most important thing. It gave me security and power and respect. But lately I've been wondering if there's more to life." "What made you start wondering?" Marcus looked directly at Elena. "You did. The night you played piano at my party. Your music was so beautiful, so full of emotion. It made me realize that I've never created anything beautiful in my life. I've made money, but I've never made art. Elena felt uncomfortable with the intensity of Marcus's gaze. You created a successful business. That's something to be proud of, but it doesn't touch people's hearts the way your music does. Elena looked down at her plate. My music doesn't matter if no one hears it. People did hear it. Everyone at my party was moved by your playing. Some of them were crying. That was just one night. It could be more than one night, Marcus said, quietly. Elena looked up at him. What do you mean? Marcus had been thinking about this conversation for days. He had a proposal to make, but he wanted to be very careful about how he presented it. Elena, I want to ask you something. And I want you to know that this has nothing to do with money or charity. This is about recognizing talent and giving it the platform it deserves. Elena felt nervous. What are you asking? I want to organize a concert for you. A real concert with professional musicians and a proper venue. I want to give you a chance to share your music with people who will appreciate. Elena stared at him in shock. A concert? But I'm not ready for that. I haven't performed professionally in years. You were ready the night you played at my party. You were more than ready, you were extraordinary. That was different. That was just one song for a small group of people. Then we'll start small. A private concert for a few dozen people. Music, lovers and industry professionals, people who can help you build a real career. Elena's heart started beating fast. A real concert. A chance to share her music with people who understood it. It was a dream she had given up long ago. Why would you do this for me? She asked. Marcus had been asking himself the same question. Why was he so determined to help Elena? It was more than just admiration for her talent. It was more than guilt about his previous behavior. There was something about Elena that made him want to be a better person. Because your music deserves to be heard, he said. And because I care about you. Elena felt her cheeks get warm. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're talented and kind and strong. I know you've sacrificed your dreams to take care of your mother. I know you have the most beautiful soul of anyone I've ever met. Elena did not know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. Marcus was looking at her like she was precious and rare. Like she was something worth treasuring. Marcus, she said softly. I don't understand what's happening here. A few weeks ago, you were just a rich man making jokes at a party. Now you're talking about organizing concerts and caring about me. It doesn't make sense. Marcus reached across the table and gently took Elena's hand. It doesn't make sense to me either. All I know is that meeting you has changed something in me. Your music woke up a part of my heart that I didn't even know existed. Elena looked down at their joined hands. Marcus's hands were soft and clean, hands that had never done hard physical labor, but they were warm and gentle as they held hers. I'm scared, Elena admitted. Of what? Of hoping. Of believing that something good might actually happen. I've been disappointed so many times. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. I can't promise that everything will work out perfectly, but I can promise that I'll do everything in my power to help you succeed. And I can promise that I'll never hurt you intentionally. Elena looked into Marcus's eyes. She saw sincerity there, and something else. Something that looked like love. Okay, she said quietly. Okay? Okay, I'll do the concert, but I have some conditions. Anything. I want to choose the music myself, and I want to start with something small, like you said. Maybe 20 or 30 people. Done. And if it doesn't go, well, if I'm not as good as you think I am, you won't try to convince me to continue. Deal. But Elena? Yes. You're better than I think you are. You're better than you think you are too. Elena smiled. For the first time in 8 years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, her musical dreams were not dead after all. And maybe, just maybe, this strange, wealthy man sitting across from her was someone she could trust with her heart. 3 months later, Elena stood backstage at the Riverside Cultural Center, waiting to perform her first real concert in 8 years. Her hands were shaking, but it was not from fear. It was from excitement. Pure, joyful excitement. The past 3 months had been like a dream. Marcus had kept his promise about starting small. Tonight's concert was for only 50 people, but they were the right 50 people. Music critics, talent agents, classical music lovers, and musicians from the local symphony orchestra. People who understood the difference between good music and great music. Elena had spent weeks preparing for this night. She practiced every day on Marcus's Steinway piano. He had given her a key to his house and told her to use the piano whenever she wanted. At first, Elena felt strange being in his house alone, but gradually the piano room became her sanctuary. Marcus had also arranged for Elena to work with Maria Santos, a famous piano teacher who had trained several international competition winners. Maria was tough and demanding, but she quickly recognized Elena's exceptional talent. "You have not lost anything," Maria told Elena after their first lesson. "Your technique is still perfect. Your musical instincts are even stronger than before. The years away from music have given you emotional depth that you did not have as a young student." Elena's mother had recovered completely from her surgery. She was healthy and strong again, and incredibly proud of Elena's return to music. She sat in the front row tonight wearing her best dress and beaming with joy. 5 minutes to showtime, the stage manager announced. Elena took a deep breath and looked at herself in the mirror. She was wearing an elegant black gown that Marcus had insisted on buying for her. At first she had refused, but Marcus explained that the dress was not charity. It was a performance costume, just like a ballet dancer's tutu or an actor's costume. "You're not Elena the caretaker tonight," he had said. "You're Elena the artist. You deserve to look the part." Elena heard the audience taking their seats in the small concert hall. 50 people did not sound like many, but when she peeked through the curtain, the hall looked full. She saw familiar faces from Marcus's party 3 months ago. They had come to hear her play again. Marcus appeared beside her backstage. He was wearing a simple black suit and looked more nervous than Elena felt. "How are you doing?" he asked. "I'm ready," Elena said, and she meant it. "I have something for you," Marcus said. He handed her a small wrapped box. Elena opened it and found a delicate silver bracelet inside. It was simple but beautiful, with tiny musical notes carved into the metal. "For luck," Marcus said, fastening the bracelet around her wrist. "Thank you," Elena said, "for everything. Not just the bracelet, for believing in me when I stopped believing in myself." Marcus looked at Elena in her beautiful gown, ready to share her gift with the world again. 3 months ago, he had been a lonely millionaire with no real purpose in his life. Tonight, he was a man who had helped someone achieve their dreams. It was the best feeling he had ever experienced. "Elena," he said, "after the concert, I want to ask you something important." "What?" "Wait, until after you play. I don't want to distract you." Elena wondered what Marcus wanted to ask her, but the stage manager was calling for her entrance. She walked onto the stage and sat down at the beautiful grand piano. The audience became quiet. Elena looked out at the faces watching her. She saw her mother in the front row, tears already in her eyes. She saw Marcus standing at the side of the stage, giving her an encouraging nod. She saw dozens of music lovers waiting to hear what she could do. Elena placed her hands on the keys and began to play. She started with the same piece she had played at Marcus's party, Chopin's Ballade No. 1. But tonight, she played it even better than before. 3 months of daily practice had sharpened her technique. 3 months of hope and happiness had deepened her emotional expression. The music filled the concert hall like golden light. Elena poured 8 years of suppressed longing into every note. She played about loss and pain and dreams deferred. But she also played about hope and second chances and love that changes everything. The audience was completely silent, entranced by the beauty of Elena's playing. When she finished the Chopin, they applauded enthusiastically. But Elena was just getting started. She played Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, accompanied by a small chamber orchestra that Marcus had hired. The piece was technically challenging and emotionally demanding, but Elena played it flawlessly, her fingers flying across the keys with impossible grace and precision. During the slow movement of the concerto, Elena saw people in the audience wiping their eyes. The music was so beautiful, so heartfelt, that it moved listeners to tears. Elena felt tears on her own cheeks as she played, but they were tears of joy, not sadness. When the concerto ended, the audience erupted in applause. They stood up and clapped for several minutes. Someone shouted, "Bravo!" Several people were openly crying. Elena stood up and bowed, feeling overwhelmed by the response. These people understood her music. They appreciated what she was trying to express. It was everything she had dreamed of as a young student at Juilliard. After the concert, Elena was surrounded by people wanting to congratulate her. A talent agent gave her his business card and asked if she would be interested in booking more concerts. A music critic told her that her playing reminded him of the great classical pianists of the past. A conductor invited her to perform with the symphony orchestra next season. Elena felt dizzy with excitement. All of these opportunities, all of these people who wanted to work with her. It was more than she had ever imagined possible. Finally, the crowd began to thin out. Elena's mother hugged her tightly and told her how proud she was. "Your father would be so happy," she said. "He always knew you were special." When everyone else had left, Marcus approached Elena. They were alone in the empty concert hall except for the piano on the stage. "You were incredible tonight," Marcus said. "Even better than I dreamed you could be. I couldn't have done it without you," Elena said. "You gave me back my music. You gave me back my life." "No," Marcus said. "You did that yourself. I just provided the piano." They stood looking at each other in the quiet hall. So much had changed between them in 3 months. Marcus was no longer the arrogant millionaire making jokes at parties. Elena was no longer the invisible servant afraid to dream. "Marcus," Elena said, "earlier you said you wanted to ask me something important." Marcus took a deep breath. 3 months ago, he had jokingly promised to marry anyone who could play his piano well. Tonight, he wanted to make that promise real. "Elena," he said, taking her hands in his. "I know this might seem sudden. I know we come from different worlds. But these past 3 months have been the happiest of my life. Not because of your music, although your music is incredible. Because of you. Because of your kindness and your strength and your beautiful heart." Elena felt her pulse quicken. She had a feeling she knew what Marcus was about to say. "I love you, Elena." Marcus continued. "I love the way you care for others. I love your dedication to your family. I love your passion for music. I love the way you've changed my life and made me want to be a better person." Marcus got down on one knee and pulled out a small velvet box. "Elena Rodriguez, will you marry me?" Elena stared at Marcus in shock. The proposal was not completely unexpected, but hearing the actual words made her heart race. She looked down at this wealthy, powerful man kneeling before her in an empty concert hall, asking her to be his wife. "Marcus," she said softly. "Are you sure? Really sure? I'm not like the women in your world. I don't know how to be a rich man's wife." "I don't want a rich man's wife," Marcus said. "I want you, exactly as you are. The woman who plays piano like an angel, the woman who cares for elderly people with infinite patience, the woman who gave up her dreams to take care of her mother." Elena felt tears in her eyes. "What about our different backgrounds? What will your business friends think?" "I don't care what they think," Marcus said firmly. "The only opinion that matters is yours. Do you love me, Elena?" Elena looked into Marcus's eyes. 3 months ago, she would never have imagined this moment. But somewhere between their dinner at Rosa's kitchen and tonight's concert, she had fallen in love with this man. Not because of his money, but because of his kindness, his genuine desire to help her achieve her dreams, his willingness to enter her world and understand her life. "Yes," she said quietly. "I love you too." Marcus's face lit up with joy. He opened the velvet box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. It was not the biggest diamond Elena had ever seen, but it was beautiful and perfect for her. "It's not too much?" Marcus asked as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "I wanted something beautiful but not overwhelming." Elena looked at the ring on her hand. It fit perfectly. "It's beautiful," she said. "Everything is beautiful." Marcus stood up and kissed Elena gently. In that moment, surrounded by the silence of the concert hall where she had just performed her heart out, Elena felt like the luckiest woman in the world. 6 months later, Elena and Marcus were married in a small ceremony at Marcus's house. The same house where their story had begun, with a joking proposal and a beautiful piano performance. Elena wore a simple white dress and played the wedding march herself on Marcus's Steinway piano. Her mother sat in the front row, healthy and radiant.